So welcome back to On the Table Gaming. And today I'm joined by Jordan Cuffie from Skullforge Miniatures. Jordan, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So congratulations, first off, on your successful Patreon. And if people don't know, Jordan makes the finest casual play miniatures in the galaxy.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but you actually kind of owe me an apology because I bought a 3D printer because of you. And I have way too many stuff that I printed now. It's become a problem. I thought I'd be able to keep up with painting it. That's not the case. So
yeah, no, this world of mass production at your fingertips now. You can have everything you ever wanted.
And so before we jump into 3D printing and miniature design and all of that, did you have any idea when you started up your Patreon that it would be so successful?
I honestly had no idea. I had an expectation of low numbers, staying low, tried and true, and just building up followers over time.
Yep.
But the twist was, and I kind of had this light bulb moment of, I've been doing Skullforge Studios on Facebook, on social media for so long that I built up a following so that when the Patreon launched, everyone knew about
It
it.
was ready
And
to go.
that was great. But yeah, and that is going to be my number one advice for anyone who wants to start a Patreon is do the work on social media for a long time, but it pays off in dividends.
So, most people, I think when they see Skullforge miniatures, they associate it with a really fantastically designed sculpts. And what I just want to kind of get at here is how did you first get into 3D sculpting and how did you come towards gaming in particular? Like which came first, the love for sculpting or the love for gaming?
Absolutely the love for gaming. I think it's being a teenager playing Shadow of the Colossus and like Grand Theft Auto 3, long nights, Metal Gear Solid 3 and all that. And there's a moment where, I figured out I want to make games. I'm drawing all these characters for games I want to make. And then, just get a job in the industry, see what that's like. And it was great. And I worked in the industry for about 11 years and learned everything I could. And then I decided, let's try something else. And so I've been doing Skullforge for full time since March of this year, but I've been doing Skullforge in total for about the last 4 years.
Yeah, I think I first came aware of you around when Legion dropped. And then I started seeing your stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff's amazing.
I remember seeing Legion at Gen Con during its first announcement, walking through those tables and just completely blown away by the miniatures. And I mean, the tables themselves were incredible. And that kind of gave me my start back into wargaming, was seeing those tables. I'd played X-Wing a little bit with some office coworkers, but then seeing those tables, I was like, yeah, I remember making this years ago. I want to get back into making it. And so I started making terrain here and there, posting on the various Facebook groups. And then Dave over at Imperial Terrain contacted me and said, hey, can you just make me a table? I need a bunch of scatter terrain, a bunch of buildings. And, we've been friends ever since, of course. But but then, he got into 3D printing and making terrain. And, my forte has always been character work. And I started posting a couple characters here and there that were fairly recognizable, and people latched onto and loved them. And once you make one character, then you have to make the rest of the squad, and then you have to make the bad guys, and
right.
then the troopers
have all
and
the toys.
Yeah.
And so, interesting enough, kind of doing a little bit of research here. So you aren't just a talented sculptor, like you're a good, I guess, like freehand artist as well. Like you're quite an illustrator. Or,
I got my start in illustration, and from there, then kind of you can go two routes. You can stick to illustration and be the best in the world at illustration, or you can start to get into 3D and you see how 3D design can influence your illustration and improve it and help you make things that you never thought were possible. And at the time I went to school for animation. And so you can either, go into 2D animation, do frame by frame stuff, or just start learning 3D, and 3D made a lot of sense.
Oh man. So, I've been dabbling, both my parents are artists. My mom's a
Cool.
master weaver. My dad's a woodworker.
Awesome.
And so I have a healthy appreciation for like how much time goes into that. I think it like skipped the gene. Like I didn't have many of that, but I'm starting to get into like, videos and stuff like that has been really inspiring, and animation, just the amount of time that goes into that. But, very much being an amateur on my end, something I've come to realize is that the professional element that I maybe took for granted is the ability to maybe what separates an amateur from professional is the ability to turn sort of like the mundane tasks to not necessarily automate, but like minimize that so that you can really get product out and focus on like what's important. And you're someone, I think, of when it comes down to how fast you get material out. I think you're like right up there. Like I do
Yeah.
worry, like what's your sleep schedule like? I was like, everything okay?
I don't have a sleep schedule. No, I think a lot of that came from working in the game industry, and the studio I worked at was a small studio. The art team was only 3 people, and so we had to make
Mhm.
everything.
Wow.
And we were working on Facebook games and then mobile games, and with those games and their live servicing, you're always making content for them. It's always a
Jeez.
long cycle. So we worked on a couple CCGs, and so you're always making new cards. And then when I got, trying to turn CCGs into hero battler games, you're always making new character models. And so taking a lot of those shortcuts I learned over the years and just applying that to, what are the 5 things that take the longest in sculpting? How can I alleviate those? And what do I like to do? And what I'm, the most in sculpting, how can I, like you said, do the thing you like to do the most? But yeah, it's definitely been a process and a long period of learning from going from apprentice to a journeyman, and now like at this journeyman level, getting out there and getting my feet wet in the real world of miniature production. But it's been great.
When do you become like a master? Is there going to be do you have a masterpiece? Is there a
Yeah,
particular sculpt that you're like, I really nailed it with this, like that you're really proud of?
there are a couple that I really really like, and I think it's when I can make the sculpt that I am beyond proud of, and then I can put it to manufacturing and get either sent out to China, or medium goal is to get a CO cast machine in the studio and just start pushing really fun boutique minis, multi-part stuff, and all that.
Is there like any particular challenges in working with this medium? Talking about, my working with textiles or with wood, there's, certain elements you got to worry about. What's maybe the worst thing about working in this sort of medium, especially with the idea of printing it?
Yeah, I think the worst thing, but I think the best constraint, and I think it's always important to work with constraints, always have obstructions to your method, is that you're always working at a small scale, so things can break. And especially
Mhm.
in games that have swords and flowy capes, you always have to be very aware of thicknesses. And I've had my own issues in some sculpts I've made where either a cape is too thin, or a little fingly bit keeps breaking off. And so you're always going back and forth between how thick does this need to be without sacrificing too much detail,
Mhm.
and do the proportions still fit, so you don't have this character holding their sword but their hands actually holding like a can of Coke. uh
Yeah.
and
And that's
you're
like
always just, yeah, go ahead.
all those proportions too. That's like another thing that's really fascinating is I don't know, there's something about, so I don't know enough to know like what I know, but I know what I like, and your proportions seem like right. And I don't know if they're like actually, are they like exact human proportions, or how do you
I've
make it
made
so it looks right on the table?
Yeah, a lot of that comes from the magic of 3D printing and rapid prototyping. So I took I'd say the first year Skullforge was make a character, print the character, go through shapeways, so it takes weeks until I was able to get my own 3D printers.
Oh man.
But then hold that to other characters of a similar line,
Hmm.
and then you realize that the characters in that similar line were sculpted either by different artists or over the production of that series, so the proportions are going to be different. So how are you going to average the nose to eye ratio, the head size to the foot size, and what kind of references can you create in your own model
Hmm.
that mirror a character that's standing, a character that's crouching, looks good from 5 feet, looks good when you hold it up under your glasses. um, but that takes a lot of back and forth, and especially when I've recently been doing stuff in 28 mil scale instead of the, I guess, what is usually like
Is it
40
like,
mil, like
yeah.
36, 40 mil. And that's another fun challenge, because the most popular games in 28 mil have super big heroic proportions.
Right.
And I think that's great, that looks cool, and those work wonderful for that game. But that's also a style that, and a proportion scale that I'm not personally fond of. And so
Mm.
now I have, okay, we'll make the hands a little bit bigger, we'll cut the eyes in a little deeper, that's fine. No, no, but it's cool. I think that's a fun exercise to always try to get better proportions and match your material more closely
One thing I've really
to.
been enjoying about your Patreon is the you've been having these like huge monthly drops, and like obviously there's the welcome package, which like I may have printed like way too many times. I've got a lot of troopers here.
Yeah.
But you also kind of you'll drop and you'll update things as the month goes on. Because you know, sometimes you get a cool thing and then you print them all at once, and then you've got like another couple of weeks and you're like, but you constantly seem to be like updating you know, these cool little freebies in your multiverse vault and
Yeah.
other elements. You know, are there any, how do you decide what really goes into you? I know you do a lot of feedback from the community in your Discord, but like, how do you decide when to add a character in? Or is there something that you look for in characters in other mediums that you're like, that's something I want to do? Like, are there specific things that, you know, really kind of catch your fancy?
Yeah, I was actually talking to a patron about this, of like what's kind of my criteria for creation. The first thing is I have to want to sculpt it.
Mhm.
It's no fun sculpting something that either you were told to do by someone else, you don't want to do it, you don't like the character, you know, you don't understand why this character is important. So you have to want to do it. It has to be fun. That one also has a little combination of it should be an interesting sculpt. I get a lot of requests to do characters in spandex and heroic poses.
Mhm.
And as much as I like those characters and the source material, I also feel that sometimes doing something in spandex is not as much as a creative sculpt as more as it is just an anatomical exercise.
Mhm.
And if you need to put, you know, a leaf on them, like a Canadian maple leaf on them, that's cool, that's great. And then you're just going to cut out the face a little bit. But as an interesting sculpt, I like some of the more cinematic material that has multiple layered armor, different materials to play with. And so that's the first factor. It has to be interesting for
Mhm.
me. The second factor is how recognizable is this in the pantheon of, you know, in this internet age, we have everything at our fingertips.
Right.
And if I make something from a book from 15 years ago that 5 people really like, there's going to be 50 people who ask me, I have no idea who this is,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and even then the source material might just be a paragraph of, you know, some text about their height, and who knows if that's correct. So I'm always, you know, if I have to do a ton of research to figure out what something is, you know, if I don't know it, chances are most people don't know it. And then, yeah, it's if I like it, if it's well known enough, and those are the two primary factors. There are definitely things I want to make that I know people don't necessarily know about as much.
Yeah.
There's a couple of, you know, films and shows and comics and stories. I'm like, yeah, yeah. Oh, like Neverending Story. I would love to have a line of miniatures based on Neverending Story. That would be so cool. I love that movie. But I know there's gonna be people being like, I have no idea what to use these for. Like, what is this even for?
We'll
I'm like,
find
I
a way.
know,
Trust me,
I
we'll find a
know.
way.
Yeah, I played Frostgrave with Neverending Story or
Right.
something. You know, I got
Oh
snow going
man.
across.
Well, that kind of speaks to an interesting point there then. You know, so you make a lot of things based on really cool properties or things that people would immediately recognize. And sometimes when you're just doing kind of all this work, you can get like kind of run down, like what energizes you? And are there any like personal pet projects you've got going that maybe you are doing just for you because you've got the skills,
Yeah.
and it's not about like, you know, what people in the greater world want or think.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get run down when you're trying to stay on top of the constant cycle of
Mhm.
new things. You know, a lot of big networks have announced their schedules for the next, you know, 2 3 years, and kind of go, okay, that's a lot of stuff just to make people happy.
Maybe
And even
11
then,
shows or something coming out of
yeah,
some
yeah, and it's and
galaxies. So
right, no, and like you look at all of it and you're like, yeah, this is all going to be amazing, and I know that I have a history of making things the moment it comes out.
yeah.
Sometimes you get tired. You know, there's a particular show with some super heroic characters about some alternative universes,
Hmm.
and yeah, I want to make all those characters. They're super fun, but also it's okay to sleep sometimes.
Right. Right.
It's good to sleep. Um, but then, you know, there are some episodes that I really adore and characters in those episodes that I really like, that other people don't like, and so sometimes you just have to go to the lowest common denominator of what
Right.
people are looking for, and then let people know that it'll happen in time. You know, it can't all happen at once. And I think I've hopefully cemented my place as the guy who can do it.
Hmm.
And now it's just a matter of when. As far as personal projects go, I think what the Patreon has allowed me to do is see that there is so much support out there to see what I make, and the Patreon is primarily a platform to support me as I make, rather than support me to get stuff at a discount every month.
Right.
That's kind of the big idea. You're helping me
Yeah.
live out, one person's dream, being in the wargaming community, just as much as like you've got your dream in the wargaming community in your space. It's brilliant, and we have all these kind of community foundational people, and it's really cool to see over the past 5 years, all of us just be able to grow and be known in this space. But for personal projects, I've got a couple of games I want to make, medium term. Put some rules, make some files, put it out there. This character right here behind me is a little sneak peek. Some
Ooh.
sci-fi operator guys that are looking for, that are basically like prospector mercenaries.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a hidden planet that is recently revealed, full of wonderful material. You have to send your guys down there, pick up the resources, send your bots down there, get the resources off. So it's kind of a skirmish scramble, if you will, and they can be used for games like Stargrave too. They're generic enough, which would be super fun. And then I've got some fun things in front of me right now. It is kind of under the moniker, or the code name Tabletop Gun, and so we've got, let's see if the camera can pick these up. So the moment I played X-Wing, I said, oh, I want to put some planes on
those
there.
Are yours?
Yes. So I've been sculpting these throughout the pandemic, printing them, painting them up.
What was that? Was it an F-18 or what?
This, yeah. So here's the F-18.
Yep. Oh man.
Here's the F-14.
So
here's the classic cat.
What was it, man? It was like the old Mac. I forget what it was. But it was like F-18 Hornet. Was like this old flight simulator game I played way too many hours of.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That is the kind of long-term goal, is this Tabletop Gun game, is just to produce a full-blown miniatures game, based off kind of that 80s and 90s dream of dogfighting that never truly happened, but we all thought it did.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, I can't fly canopy to canopy, and that doesn't exactly work like that.
That's not how aerodynamics work. Oh man, Blue Ages do it all the time.
Darn it. Well, that's fantastic. So have you always had an interest in planes?
Yeah, my mom was in the Air Force.
Okay.
I was born in Andrews Air Force Base, and my dad worked in aerospace, the business side of aerospace engineering, and always just kind of had plane parts around the house, just various odds and pieces and books from my parents' collection. And it's funny because as a kid, I was terrified of flying. And then
of course, right. Yeah,
right. But as an adult, I love flying. I think my vision's poor enough where I could never, get a pilot's license or anything. But I play my DCS. I've got my flight sticks, in my spare time, and I love modeling these airplanes. And I've got a whole bunch that I didn't bring over, but the fun thing is, with all these models complete, now I have plans to send them off to be cast, and we'll see how that process goes, and if the detail shows up, or we need to take the missiles off or something. But it'll be really cool. I want to make it a easy to play, kind of that top level of, I understand this game after page one.
Yep.
And after a game now, oh my gosh, all the possibilities are coming to me, and I'm going to now design this, I'm gonna load out this aircraft, and these special pilot cards, and we're gonna dogfight in the air.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I'm all about that. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that down the line, and we'll definitely be playing that over here. Do you are there any games that you get any time to play games on your regular weeks? And are there any games that if maybe you're not playing, that you're interested in?
Yeah, this is my biggest sin, is I don't play enough games. I rarely get any time to get out and play. And since leaving my previous job, the office had closed down and has not opened up yet. So everyone's scattered throughout the Chicagoland area. So you guys want to meet up? Oh no, we'll just play games online. Okay, that's cool. But I was doing some Frostgrave a little bit before the pandemic, and now with the new solo play Stargrave rules, I'm putting together, along with this guy here, putting together a nice little war band, and we'll be doing some solo play rules.
Nice. And I had seen there was kind of like an Instagram post where you maybe hinting at looking at maybe making some other games, or looking for other homebrew rules with some of your maybe Desert Raiders or other miniature.
Well, there's this really great movie that takes place in the desert in the far, far future,
Hmm.
and based off a book that I read every year. But I was watching the film and I was just thinking to myself, like, how do you make that into a fun war game? You could easily just adapt it to your Stargrave or your Frostgrave and have your war bands.
Right.
But how does this work in the army sense? And what A Song of Ice and Fire did with updating rank and file
Hmm.
and making that very approachable. I think with these like large battles of people in the future that can only use swords,
Right.
rank and file makes sense.
So interesting. Yeah, I wonder how you could kind of innovate off that sphere there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I'm excited either way to see what you come up with. Um, yeah, because I think the
Yeah, yeah,
sculpts you've done on
yeah.
that, and there's
You
so much
think
room for
about it
that.
and you
I mean,
go, now, huh? And so, like, part of the design space I was thinking of, does rank and file have to be a square? Could it be a
right.
hex? And is it still rank and file at that point because you're
Ooh,
not playing with
well,
the lines? But rank and file, I think, in my lizard brain
hmm,
is more figures on a tray, and each
right,
figure has an equal size tray. You're not playing with oblong
right.
shapes or anything, and so now you have these hexagonal trays that touch each other in such a way that the problem of engagement becomes very easily seen along
Yeah,
the corrugated hex edge.
it actually solves some of the problems, right? Because you're not working with these like weird like partial alignments across a long front, as you
Exactly,
got numerous
exactly.
shorter. I think you might
Yeah,
be
and then
onto something
then
here.
you
Now
take
you're
guys off the hex as they die, and then someone flanks you from
oh
behind, and you have nobody there, so like they get a crit on the next attack
yeah,
or something like that. But
yeah.
there's a space there's ideas there.
So is this like a curse in any way where you can like come up with a cool idea like this? Like I might have an idea. I'm like, oh, I'd be cool if I did this. But you can come up with an idea like this and be like, and I can
Oh,
sculpt that. Like,
absolutely. I mean, everything you've seen up into the Patreon was like, oh, that's cool. I'll make that.
yeah. Oh,
Oh
gee.
man, I like that thing. Okay, let's do that. This whole like like tabletop gun thing. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's watch Top Gun again. Let's do
Well, how long does it take
that.
you to sculpt something on average? Like, should we be concerned for your family? Are you like, hey, we're supposed to have dinner sometime soon?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, wait, I have an idea.
Yesterday. The average sculpt takes about 2 days, and I've
Oh,
got
wow.
a couple workflows that I've adapted over time to make it fit into
Hmm.
2 days. And that is, you have to make the character, then posing the character, but then setting up the character in such a way that I can get multiple poses out of the character very easy. And the thing with ZBrush, that the primary
Okay.
sculpting program,
Yep.
is that you can pose characters. It just takes a little bit of work. And so how can
Mhm.
I take that part that I don't like doing and speed that
Gotcha.
up and
Oh,
turn that into
interesting.
its own quick macro process?
Do you typically sculpt off of like a reference image, or how does that process work?
Yeah, lots of reference images.
Okay.
It's really great. I've got, if I rotate the camera, you would see how in transition this room is, because I'm in the process of renovating a basement in a building that I managed to be the primary Skullforge Studios, home base. But the bookshelf is full of art books from various,
Mm,
films and all that, and games. And when you see those orthographic views, the front, side, back, those are incredible. And so you can see um, what the artist was originally intending with the character.
mhm.
When you see that one cool promotional view on a poster, like,
Right.
yeah, yeah, that view is there because the glasses wrapped around the back of the head, and there's this really cool thing with the matrix plug in the back of their head. Oh, neat, neat, neat. Okay.
That's awesome. Oh man. Out of out of the things that you've sculpted, is there, one thing that you're like particularly proud of? Is it like, do you more lean towards some of the larger scale stuff? I have a giant vehicle I'm assembling that I printed from your
Yeah.
files there. And it's like really impressive. And I'm like, wow, that's like really laborious. But I'm like, oh, at the same time, like I've got some smaller things that are really well detailed with billowing capes or certain facial expressions. And like which of your pieces do you feel like maybe represents your work or style the most?
Yeah. I think some of the recent stuff, the welcome pack and the Patreon with the two characters, the two Guardian
Hmm.
characters, I think ever since I first saw the source material for that, I fell in love. And those two characters, I think, represent the pinnacle of my skill set in clothwork, my skill set in faces, and then my skill set in layout with setting up that little diorama base, because it's a
Yeah.
large base that the two guys fit into. A little bit of engineering in there. And I think that shows off what I can do, but it also, I've got my own, I painted my own up. I'm like, look, and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. I like looking at that. I'm not a great painter by any means, but I can look at that and I can feel good about it.
And you're like, I made
And
that.
yeah, what else do I got? I've got a whole bunch of stuff just like laying around this office that I don't think has ever seen the light of day. Here we go. And here is some stuff that let's pull that back.
Oh my
This cool
gosh.
dropship thing that I have no idea what to do with. I mean, it's got to be, I've got to put it out sometime for Stargrave. Here's a cool little
Yeah.
dropship. Um, but just like big vehicles like this, where I haven't, there's the two types of printing: resin printing and FDM printing.
Mhm.
And I usually stick to resin printing, because I make miniatures.
Mhm.
That's just what you print with. But I got into FDM printing, and there's all these vehicles that just I make off and on here and there. And I put this guy in the printer, got him off, and I was like, wow, yeah, that's what it's for. That's what FDM, this big old vehicle. Love it, love it.
So you're saying I need to buy an FDM printer too now?
Oh yeah, yes, you do.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. This
I'm
is
sorry.
the
So you need to get an FDM printer, and you need
most
to go to
expensive
Hardware
conversation
Studios,
ever.
and you need to go, yeah, Hardware Studios and Imperial Terrain, and pick up all their stuff.
Yes.
Because it is all juice. It is all juicy. Or I say it's pure sabak.
Fantastic. So what might people have to look forward to on your Patreon coming up?
Yeah. So we've got so that this month was a very unique month, in that uh well, ununique to do this month. I put up a lot of suggestions, and I
Mhm.
let all the patrons vote for what they want to see.
Yeah.
This month, all the suggestions were things that every suggestion I said, yeah, no, I could do this part, this part, this part, do this character here, do this pose here. Every suggestion I could just see it visualized on the tabletop, done deal. And so this month is fun that there's a theme that got voted #1. So there's some really cool palace guards coming up
Mhm.
from a particular episodic galactic adventure. So these really fun palace guards, and kind of their skirmish escape from the palace scene. That'll be really fun for a particular army in a particular game. Have fun with those. Those are cool. But then there's these, we'll say they're called Crimson Sun Syndicate.
Mhm.
Um, that will be awesome. Then there's the Spice Mining Syndicate
Yep. Oh
that
yeah,
will
of
be
course.
doing those too. That'll be exciting. And then there's the Heroic Arena, kind of let's yeah as because that's a common
Yeah.
word.
Yeah, exactly.
But
But
Heroic
so
Arena
these take
of,
you
of
like
of the
2
gods.
days to make? Because like I was trying to like figure out on my fingers. I was like, you come out with so much. Like you're really working like around the clock on this stuff.
Yeah, and luckily right now I really like doing it. I think
Okay. That helps.
yeah.
Because like like I honestly did not expect your your kind of, what was it, a weekend, 15, 10 days like into the month, and you're like, oh, by the way, like I'm screaming Viva Las Vegas as I'm printing stuff out, and I'm like, how long did that like, how do you do all this?
Yeah. Well, it's the magic of the internet, where I can just like look at a reference, just look at some reference footage, and just like scrub back and forth. And then
Yep.
like the easiest thing would be look at a screenshot, and then you see like you don't see what's on like the left shoulder, and
Right.
then you turn and you go, oh no, that's a cool costuming detail. Um, but yeah, part of that is, every character has a face, and
Mhm.
so if you made one face, you made them all,
Hmm.
and you can tweak. There are enough base face shapes to sculpt those out individually, and then just pull a face, pull like head B, and then maneuver it around. Maybe their nose is a bit bigger, or their cheeks are pushed up. That's a close enough caricature where then if you put an hour of polish on it, you've got the head.
Okay.
Then with the body, either you're doing a big muscular heroic body,
Right.
or you have your average, person, just average guy,
What are we
average woman.
talking about here? I'm
Yeah, yeah. Hey,
feeling pretty
I am above average. But from there, you're sculpting clothes, and all
Mhm.
clothes have wrinkles, or
Yep.
they're in spandex, and spandex is just, just their muscles.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of knowing what the material is and what can you do artistically to either make it fit the character, or fit your vision of what your concept you're working off of.
It's inspiring. It's really cool as someone who's getting these and just getting the 3D printing and printing out the stuff you're making, because it definitely energizes me. I was really inspired to get out there and play games of Star Wars Legion or other games where I'm proxying in other things and having fun and playing variations of the games with different rules or different scenarios, and it just really captures your imagination, and it really sparks what makes me enjoy wargaming as a hobby as a whole. And I'm just like, I'm just having fun playing with some toys from shows and from inspiration from things that I liked as a kid, and to be able to translate that and be like, I can hold this thing in my hand and make laser noises as I roll dice. Like that's the best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for playing. I mean, it is all about the fun, right? Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we're a bunch of people in like their 30s and 40s and
Yep.
above and below. They're like, yeah, we
I
like
like how
small
you saw the
things.
gray and you were like, this is
I
above
know,
or
I know.
below? I'm
What did
not
you see
quite
my
sure.
But like we like games, and what are games at their core is they're just fun, right? It's creative fun, and so um part of this game that we all play is all about the reality of the physical. And there are some things, what I love is the idea of your wildest dreams, something you could never ever thought would be put into a physical piece. That can be done.
Yeah.
And that's super exciting, because all we do is we look at the world around us and think of all the things we could have and make. You go into the desert for a week and you're like, yeah, I'm going to make a bunch of desert terrain. Oh, I have a whole idea for a desert board. Or like it's snowing and you're like, yeah, so how am I going to make the most perfect snow? And then it's like, yeah, well, what if you had some characters from, either your favorite, from your favorite story to go along with that snow?
Yeah.
There you go.
So, in a lot of ways, and as we sort of wrap things up here, you're really kind of inspirational figure here, going out here and pioneering in this time when there's, a few other big groups that are starting to make 3D miniatures, and you just make incredibly detailed ones. And so as an inspiration for those, and maybe a trailblazer for those who might come later, if someone's maybe just getting into the idea of 3D printing or sculpting themselves, how might you suggest someone go about becoming a sculptor? Are there like things you learned along the way that you're like, don't do this? I've actually talked to some people in content creation being like, oh, I went to school for this. And they're like, I wouldn't recommend going to school for this, go to this or that. Like, what would you recommend for people who might, follow in your footsteps someday?
Yeah, I would say understanding anatomy. If you're going to be sculpting, regardless if you're doing physical sculpting in clay or you're doing digital sculpting, understanding the core basics of human anatomy, that is the most important. If you're sculpting people, of course.
Yeah,
But the core aspects of
some terrifying chairs there.
yeah, just like I do
chair have
abstract. Why do I need an anatomy? That's a weird chair you're making in Sketchfab. But for myself and doing more anatomical humanoid models, understanding anatomy, understanding how, if you're going to make a creature, how the musculature will work, how the eyes need to be placed, and how then that character would see. But think of all the aspects of the physicality, the physicalness of the character, understanding anatomy. And then I would say also, before that, understanding shape. Everything around that you see is based off either a cone, a cylinder, or a sphere, or a cube. And if you can break down a complex item into those basic shapes, you're miles ahead of everybody else.
Is that how you see the world? You're like, in the Matrix, and instead of like
Oh yeah,
numbers,
yeah,
you
no.
see like, oh, there's that square guy again.
Exactly. No, I mean, I look at a hat and it's like I see you can look at a hat and see a cylinder. No, or you see a sphere. I see a cylinder that's cut in half, running at the top, then a square shape that's curved, and then the edges are blind a little bit. And that's okay, that's a hat. Versus I spent 50 hours trying to make this hat. It's like, no, 2 seconds, make the hat real quick. The hat doesn't even matter. The hat's back. The hat's sitting on the belt of the character. The hat doesn't matter. You need to focus on everything else. And then from there, so you start with core shapes, anatomy, and then efficiencies. Efficiencies are so important. Don't spend time doing something you hate, and don't spend time on the fingernails, because no one's going to see them.
Gotcha. So it's not one of those, well, but I'll know. It's like, nope, just
yeah, no, and here's the thing. At the end of the day, you're looking at a render that's maybe like a 250 by 250. You're not gonna see the fingernails. You're not gonna thumbnail.
Makes sense. Well, fantastic. And, I'm really excited to see where your Patreon goes, and I'm excited to be a supporter. And yeah, I have printed a lot, so I'm looking forward to printing more. And
Like, yeah,
I'm
keep printing.
I'm like, I should give it a break. And then I'm like, what? There's more stuff. I was like, well,
Yeah.
I gotta print it because I can practice painting on it, or I can use this in this game. And so it's been wonderful.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for coming on. And if anyone's listening, make sure you check out the Skullforge Studio Facebook group, and also support them on Patreon. I'm in the Discord there, and sometimes I wonder how you get anything done, because you interact quite a lot there, and we're able to suggest things, and you're like, hey, yeah, great idea. I give feedback. So
I honestly part of it is this incredible guilt trip that I never think I'm doing enough. Where it's always easy to see beyond and into the horizon, and then you can see these other content creators who have been doing Patreon 10 times longer than you have a lot of people falling like, wow, how do you do that? And it's like, well, it's time and dedication.
Yeah.
I've been doing this Patreon for 2 months.
Yeah.
And it's going great so far.
It's
but I also
fantastic.
see like let's kick it up a notch. My wife goes, yeah, or
this is only the beginning, sir.
We could watch the Ted Lasso show.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a glass of wine. I'm like, I do like Ted Lasso.
Well, I mean, if anything I could say is like, you are enough and you do enough, like, big fans, and in my local community, your name's up there on Mount Olympus. So we're excited, and we're looking forward to more. We're excited about what you've already got. Like, it doesn't always have to be what's coming down the line. Yeah, you've got such great stuff. And so once again, I think I can speak for many others as well when we say, thank you and keep up the good work. And we're happy to support you. And it's fun to see you excited, and just it translates into your work. So especially now I'm like thinking about that tabletop gun. It's a great name already.
Yeah. Well, so it was my buddy Dales, who runs Hardware Studios, and he does a lot of BattleTech work.
Mm-hmm.
That's his Instagram handle, and I just like set it off the cuff. He's like, no, you can use it. It's like, yeah, no, it works really well for the planes.
It does.
I need that name.
So I'm looking forward to hear more about that as well.
Yeah.
And thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. And like I said, make sure to check out Skullforge Studios on Gumroad, on Facebook, Patreon especially. And I'm looking forward to getting your miniatures on the table.